Good day once again, and welcome to another session on school legislation and finance. Today, we will talk about Data Privacy Act and schooling. Prior to the year 2000, the majority of student records were still recorded on paper documents in file cabinets. The government then began granting money for the establishment of statewide longitudinal data systems in response to the No Child Left Behind's extensive accountability requirements, according to Trainer in 2015. The explosion began. Companies created a flurry of programs that enable schools to store and analyze data in a number of ways, with enabling data to be saved on distant servers. Data Privacy Act of 2012, or DPA, refers to Act number 10173 of the Republic of the Philippines, an act protecting individual personal information in information and communication systems in the government and the private sector, creating for this purpose a National Privacy Commission and for other purposes. So this lecturate will be anchored on the following objectives. Number one, discuss the student data and privacy. Number two, enumerate what constitutes student data and categories of privacy. Discuss the value of student data and define Data Privacy Act and its scope. So the Data Privacy Act is a law that protects personal information in government and commercial sector information and communications networks, establishing a National Privacy Commission and serving other objectives. It stipulates that all personal information must be handled safely and privately. In a school context, this covers both staff and student information. If you must access, save, distribute, or utilize their personal information, you must do it securely, since such information is sensitive and private. Everyone, including adults and children, has the right to know how information about them is used and assurance that it is protected by your school. So, as to the scope of Data Privacy Act, it applies to the processing of all types of personal information and to any natural and juridical person involved in personal information processing, including those personal information controllers and processors who, although not found or established in the Philippines, use equipment that are located in the Philippines or those maintain an office, branch, or agency in the Philippines, subject to the immediately succeeding paragraph, provided that the requirements of Section 5 are complied with. So this act, referring to Republic Act 10173, does not apply, okay, to the following. Number one, information about any individual who is or was an officer or employee of a government institution that relates to the position or functions of the individual, including the fact that the individual is or was an officer or employee of the government institution, the title, business address, and the office telephone number of the individual, the classification, salary range, and responsibilities of the position held by the individual, and number four, the name of the individual on a document, okay, on a document prepared by the individual in the course of employment with the government. Number two, information. So this is not also covered. Information about an individual who is or was performing service under contract for a government institution that relates to the services performed, including the terms of the contract and the name of the individual given in the course of the performance of those services. So these are not covered in the so-called Data Privacy Act. Then what about student data and privacy? Okay, so in education, student data refers to any information, okay, that educators, schools, districts, and internet services gather about individual students. It is a kind of education record, okay? Improving kids or child's academic performance and preparing them for lifelong success requires access to high-quality education data. So this data, when utilized successfully, may provide educators, students, and families with the knowledge necessary to make choices that will help all learners succeed, according to McCormick in 2003. So what constitutes students' data? Historically, students' data included attendance, grades, disciplinary records, and health information. So historically, access to this information was limited to the administration, guidance counselor, teacher, or other school official who required it to meet the educational requirements of the student. Traditional data is now often shared with organizations that offer student information systems, or SIS, learning management systems, LMS, and other several other technologies. So concerns have been expressed by students, parents, and others over the information that is being gathered or shared, as well as the use that these firms make of this information. So student personal information encompasses any information regarding a student's identification, academics, medical issues, or anything else that is collected, kept, and shared on behalf of schools by schools or technology providers. This was based on the work of Kruger and Moore in 2015. Excuse me. Therefore, this student data contains, number one, contact and demographic data such as address, phone number, gender or sex, and age. Okay, that's used for communication and improving other operations. Additionally, student data includes student attendance and grades. That's used to show student progress. The test and assessment results, that's used to highlight student progress and effectiveness of the education program. Preference and usage collected through surveys and feedback loop data on issues such as school facilities, learning climate, and diversity. That's used to monitor and adjust a school to better meet students' needs. So these are part and parcel of the student data. So let's begin with personal data protection for students. So through interaction between students, teachers, and tools or platforms, data are generated throughout the process of online learning. In majority of the instances, students and instructors may lack the understanding to safeguard their personal information. With the integration of the internet into education, it is essential that users have a fundamental understanding of data, including data and data privacy protection. So personal data and personal data protection are intrinsically linked. There are privacy risks whenever information is gathered, kept, or utilized. Who has permitted access and who defines it is the essence of privacy. Data privacy focuses on the use and management of personal data, such as implementing rules to guarantee that users' personal information is gathered, shared, and utilized appropriately. Flaherty in 1989 argues that network computer databases offer privacy risk. As a component of privacy, he creates data protection, okay, which covers the gathering, use, and distribution of personal information. So this notion sets the basis for government's worldwide usage of fair information practices. So number two, the value of student data. So more than just test results, data is one of the most effective tools for informing, engaging, and creating opportunities for children throughout their educational journey, or learners throughout their educational journey. Data facilitates the information of associations that provide insights and enhancements, and it enables a student to have a better understanding of his or her own learning style and aptitude, and to direct his or her own educational path. Student information aids parents in determining what steps to take to assist their children on the route to success. So teachers are able to provide assistance in accordance with where their learners are succeeding and failing based on the information provided by student data. So student data helps the school administrators determine what is and is not working in the school, allowing them to make timely choices and ensure that resources support excellent teaching and increase student learning. Additionally, student data enable after-school partners understand what children are doing before school, so they can assist families and communities in creating additional chances for students to achieve. So data has the ability to change education into a tailored, individualized experience that matches the requirements of each student and guarantees that none get lost along the way. So from parents to legislators, education stakeholders use a variety of data sources, including test results, course grades, and demographic information to enhance education data. Now we talk about the student data privacy. Privacy in general is the tranquility of a natural person's private existence, as well as the private space, private activities, and private information that one does not want others to know. In general, privacy is the right to be left alone, or the absence of interruption or invasion. Information privacy is the right to exercise some control over the collection and use of one's personal information. So according to the guidelines on the protection of privacy and trans-border flows of personal data of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, there has been a trend to broaden the traditional concept of privacy. So that's the right to be left alone, and to identify a more complex synthesis of interest that could be more accurately termed privacy and individual liberties, according to Wang and others in 2020. So the protection of student data includes the usage, collecting, management, and administration of personally identifiable information, or PII, according to McCormick in 2003. So this includes any data that can be used to identify, locate, or contact a specific student. Everyone who utilizes personally identifiable student information has a duty to protect the student's privacy and data security. So this begins with reducing the amount of data gathered, saved, shared, and utilized to promote student success and learning. When feasible, aggregated, de-identified data that do not influence individual students should be utilized to influence crucial policy choices and aid in the improvement of student beneficial services and systems. In situations when the use of personal data is required, the few persons who have access to this information must manage it legally, responsibly, and ethically. So there has never been a time when student data privacy was more relevant, important, and stressful for school administrators. Even though the subject has existed since way back in 1970s, when schools started collecting electronic information, much has changed since the days of analog technology and magnetic cassettes. Our data universe has increased in size, and the majority of schools depend on cloud services to gather and store their data. Administrators have never faced more dangers and duties regarding the confidentiality of student data. Student data privacy is essential due to legal and ethical restrictions on the collection, use, sharing, and management of personally identifiable information. So the privacy of a student PII is governed by state regulations, and although enforcement has generally been minimal, the legal environment is shifting. So, what are the four categories of privacy? Number one, physical. So, restriction on others to experience a person or situation through one or more of the human senses. Excuse me. Number two, unknowable to others. Number three, decisional. Restriction on interfering in decisions that are exclusive to an entity. And finally, dispositional. So restriction on attempts to know an individual's state of mind. Having said all of this, okay, about data privacy in schooling, concerns about personal privacy that are voiced by parents, policymakers, and privacy activists are founded in reality. Some people would want for us to have the misconception that the worries are exaggerated. The reality of the matter is that there is a very precise set of laws that handle the issue of protecting the privacy of the students while they are enrolled in educational institutions. So the collecting and use of information pertaining to students is now under consideration for new and unprecedented regulations by state legislatures. In the same way that laws and the technologies they regulate will continue to advance, so too should the methods that are used in educational institutions. So that's all for our mini lecture on Data Privacy Act and schooling, part of our topics in school legislation and finance. Till the next.